Good evening. We'll be starting our meeting. Given the current shelter-in-place orders governing the state of California and the social distance guidelines issued by the federal, state, and local authorities, the city is implementing changes to participate in council meetings. The council chamber will be open to the public, but we will be implementing social distancing policies and will limit the number of people who may be in the council chambers. The meeting will be webcast and accessed at our city website. It's cityofclovis.com, government /city council /city council agenda. Members of the public are encouraged to participate in the meeting by, one, accessing the webcast at the city council site, two, providing written comments at the same website, participating by phone, or coming to the city council meeting in person. We are participating social distancing and can only accommodate a maximum of 16 people at one time. I'll call the meeting to order. And the flag salute will be led by Councilmember Monatua.
Please join us as we pledge allegiance to our flag. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Ron. Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Councilmember Ashbeck is absent this evening. Councilmember Bessinger?
Here.
Councilmember Monatua?
Here.
Councilmember Whalen?
Here.
Mayor Flores?
And I'm here. Next item, public comments. This is the opportunity for the members of the public to address the City Council on any matter. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed one place. Presentations and proclamations. Presentations and proclamations declaring May 10th to the 16th, 2021 as the National Salvation Army Week. And this proclamation will be read by Councilmember Bessinger.
It's my pleasure to read this proclamation declaring the May 10th to 16th, 2021 as the National Salvation Army Week. Whereas the Salvation Army has provided hope to men, women, children, and senior citizens across America since 1879. And whereas the Salvation Army serves to meet human needs by utilizing its foundation and mission of soup, soap, and salvation without discrimination in over 5,000 communities nationwide. And whereas the Salvation Army is celebrating the 67th annual National Salvation Army Week, which was first declared by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1954 as a time to honor the organization's work. And whereas the Salvation Army is a nonprofit agency that encourages volunteerism and donations to charity. And whereas the Salvation Army serves more than 32 million Americans in need each year, with 83 cents of every dollar raised going directly towards the support services and 100% of the funds raised for emergency disasters going directly to the disaster. And whereas the Salvation Army has been a service agency in the city of Clovis for over 28 years, providing help to our community by providing meals, food pantry, shelter, clothing, financial emergency services, and other necessary assistance with over 28,000 annual individual interactions with citizens. And whereas the Salvation Army is continually expanding programs to the community, including the Pathway of Hope program to end the cycle of poverty. And whereas the Clovis City Council encourages Americans and community members to express their appreciation for the Salvation Army's good works and to follow their example of serving a cause greater than themselves this week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Clovis City Council does hereby declare May 10th through the 16th, 2021 as National Salvation Army Week, and is witnessed and signed by our Mayor, Jose Flores.
Thank you, Drew.
my pleasure to introduce our captains for the Clovis Salvation Army, the organization whose motto is doing the most good. And I'd like to introduce you to Captains Jenny and Kalani Onasuka Adams. They've been here 4 years now? 5 years now, and we'll give them a moment to present.
We here at the Salvation Army really would like to thank the mayor and the council members, and also this great city of Clovis that just really got behind us, especially in a time of need. We really appreciate everything that is, and the hearts that are always been behind it, doing the most good.
Thank you. Thank you for all the work you do. And would you come up here and take this humble proclamation from us? Well, we can. I'm fully vaccinated, so I'm fully vaccinated. And I'm not supposed to. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Drew. Next is public comments. This is the opportunity for the members of the public to address the City Council on any matter within the City Council's jurisdiction that is not listed on the agenda. In order for everyone to be heard, please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less, or 10 minutes per topic. Anyone wishing to be placed on the agenda for a specific topic should contact the City Manager's office and submit correspondence at least 10 days before the desired date of appearance. Anyone wishing to comment? Okay, come up to the podium and give us your name, your address, and let us know what you'd like to tell us.
Good evening. Hi, we're the Williams family. We're the owners of 559 Brewery and Restaurant in Old Town Clovis, 356 Pulaski, corner of Pulaski and 4th. We came today we sent a letter in. I'm trusting that everybody's got a copy of it. The impact of the pandemic over the past year has been a tough road to navigate, to say the least. Small business is the heart and soul of our community, with many casualties due to financial loss. The unprecedented times have caused our business to pivot our operation and allowed us to simply pay minimum overhead just to keep the place alive. The tier system has kept us, in a restrictive purple tier for far too long. We're now in an orange tier, which means we can only have 50% capacity with the indoors. But the thing that really helped us out was the ability to put a street concession, we call it a corral, out there. The revenue that we produced from there is directly attributed to that street corral and the viability and the seating, which our customers actually love, and we have a lot of really great comments on this new environment. We have live music outdoors, which has also created an attraction that we have noticed is bringing new customers into Old Town, and they tell us they've never been here. They're from Fresno, Visalia, or whatever. We've pivoted to provide this new OTC experience that brings revenue into our little community, and a vibe that is fresh and revitalizes Old Town with young adults. We believe that if Clovis is to become and continue to be a viable destination for younger generations, we must allow these types of outdoor dining experiences to continue beyond the pandemic. Considering our past 12 months of financial losses, and we're now requesting that the City of Clovis reconsider the removal of the street corral and allow us to continue the current operations of the dining experience, so that we can continue to begin to realize profitability. March of 2020, as we all shut down around the 15th to 17th, we were not profitable again until March of 2021. So we have March, and April, 2 months of profitability, yay. But then to be requested to shut this down at the beginning of May really doesn't give us a lot of light at the end of the tunnel. That's it. We appreciate your time in considering our request, and feel free to ask us any clarifying questions.
Okay. As you know, this is a public comment. Since it's not really on our agenda, we really can't ask questions of you, and we're here to listen to you. And I see Andy Hauser out there. One thing we did do, and I'll say this generally speaking when it comes to the business community of Clovis, especially Old Town, we found solutions, and Andy was one of who spearheaded those solutions on how we could mitigate the impacts of the COVID pandemic. And what you're talking about was one of the ways we found solutions. It was one of the solutions we found. And I'm sure that by working with Andy, we can find another way to mitigate what's happening now. But sooner or later, we're going to have to reopen Clovis. So work with Andy. I'm sure he can help us understand what's going on and also find a way to mitigate what's going on at your particular business. Okay?
Absolutely.
Mayor, I have a question for the city manager, if I can.
Sure.
Luke, I know that we've got repealing some emergency orders on the agenda for tonight's meeting. The one that made public areas available for restaurants and retail is not on the list that we're planning on repealing this evening. And so I presume that order remains in place. Is there a time that you have thought that maybe we should be repealing that emergency order that allowed for restaurants and retail to access some of the public areas?
So correct, that order is not on tonight's list to be rescinded. It remains in effect. The order itself includes a sunset date of 30 days after businesses are allowed to go back to full occupancy. So once that comes, then the order will kind of self-terminate. We'll probably go through the formality of rescinding it after it has terminated due to that 30 days after the occupancy limitations passing, which right now appear to be coming June 15th with the end of the tier. There's not a lot of details out there. They're saying if the state is saying if things continue the way they are, then on June 15th, the tier limitations go away, and everyone, the state's website says, can return to normal operations with some common sense precautions such as masks. So we're anticipating July 15th being the 30 days past that date, at which point that emergency order would kind of self-terminate.
Okay. I would, it seems like you're anticipating this already. I would like to be able to have some conversation related to how we should modify that particular emergency order. I think that there has been a positive response to having some retail and restaurants be out in the public spaces. And so I'd like to continue that conversation at the appropriate time, sometime before July 15th, if we can.
Yes, we would plan on that. We've got kind of a number of issues in front of us here, some more immediate than others. Immediately, we are not directing anyone to remove permanently their street or public parking structures. What we have asked is, as we're seeing Old Town open up and business pick up, we're starting to get complaints from the users of Old Town and other businesses that we're losing a lot of parking that may or may not be used. We had 5 restaurants that had outdoor dining areas on public property, and some of those were used almost every day. Some were used rarely or frequently, and kind of everything in between. So we started working with them to try to get them removed when they weren't being used to free up the public parking, but there's never been any direction not to be able to use that when they need to use it. So that's where we're at now. Long term, there may be a need for some significant land use changes in Old Town because the outdoor dining is kind of a thing of the future, but that's a much longer term. It's not really covered under this emergency order.
Okay. Well, that's the conversation I'd like to have is related to what is going to be the long-term adjustments that we want to make related to outdoor dining. So, and then there's I thought there was also an immediate issue related to farmers market and how that area, which we have allowed people to dine in or sell out of, is going to be impacted as a result of us promising Boot that they would be able to utilize our streets. Have we had much conversation with Boot?
We have had some conversation, and I understand that Boot and 559 have been in discussions. Boot has a long-standing street closure for Friday Night Farmers Market dating back years and years ago. So under that permit, they really have control of the street for those hours on Friday night. If someone needs to have a booth there, including the Old Town businesses that sometimes put booths there, they have to work through Boot to get that space for Friday night. But my understanding, and the Williams family could correct me if I'm wrong, is there's already been discussions between Boot and the Williams family and coordination on that front at least.
Okay, for the farmer's market?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you, Luke.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to bring an issue before us? Not on the agenda. Mr. Segala?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm fully vaccinated. Can I take this
Sure.
off to speak? Thank you. Good evening, City Council, Mr. Mayor. Michael Segala, Board President of IDLS, your local nonprofit partner. I'm here to give you a brief update on Magnolia Crossing Senior Assisted Living. It's been a couple of years since I last addressed the council. As you know, with your help, we opened in early 2018. Things were going well. We were almost fully occupied, had just switched to a self-managed operation, then COVID hit. It's been a rough year, but we remarkably made it through with low COVID numbers and no deaths. Thank you to your city staff and other local partners who helped us with supplies, advisement, and support throughout this process. The pandemic hit us hard in terms of our operations. The cost of PPEs, COVID pay, overtime, staff turnover, combined with limited new residents, made it very difficult, and we could not have made it without the help of federal assistance. There's a longer story here, but I don't have time. I like to share an op-ed I wrote that has yet to be published. It goes through in more detail, if you're interested, some of the things we went through. It highlights public health decisions, funding constraints, and ends with how the unique design elements of our community made us more resilient to COVID. I wrote the governor, the local hospitals. I went to see the Board of Supervisors during this process for help, and here are those letters as well. We received our vaccines in January, and life is looking better now. Our residents are doing so much better, and we are providing, in my opinion, great care and services to them. To wrap things up, it would be helpful if you could consider operational support with some of your COVID relief funds, in particular to your nonprofit partners who cared for the most vulnerable population during the worst pandemic of our times. As a side note, in addition to helping us build an amazing award-winning community, our nonprofit, Innovative Development and Living Solutions of California, is also one of the largest nonprofits in the city of Clovis. Thank you for helping us grow the organization as well. Thanks again, and please know that we would be thrilled to build more housing, especially affordable housing, which is very much needed in our great community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mike. Questions or
Mr.
comments?
Segala, did you say that you had some COVID cases but no deaths?
Yes,
That's amazing. Great work.
very low numbers.
Great.
Great work. Thank you. And thank you for the report.
Mhm.
And who works with you? Is it Andy or? Yeah, okay.
You can give those maybe just to Vaughn, and then he'll pass it on.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else? Okay. I'll close the public comments portion.
Mr.
Mayor,
Oh, sorry.
if I may,
Oh,
we
I'm
do
sorry.
have some people online.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm still used to the old way. Okay, go ahead for on the way. Who do we have online?
All right, first we have Chrissy Falk. Chrissy, I just unmuted you. You may speak.
Terrific. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, go ahead.
Terrific. Thank you so much. My name is Chrissy Falk. I am we own a family business, Cabinet Connection, there in Clovis on Herndon Avenue and 168. And we also are the former owners of a restaurant in Old Town called Glastonbury that I'm sure you all are familiar with. And my reason for reaching out this evening is, and we are no longer the owners of Glastonbury, but we happen to go to enjoy the live music and seeing all of the employees during rodeo weekend. And my question, I'm going to explain to you what happened that evening, but what I'm going to be directing this at is asking you all what the culture you are striving to achieve in Old Town Clovis is. Listening to the Williams family, they are getting at the heart of exactly what's happening in Clovis, that we have a new energy, we have a new vibe going on down there, we have a new website that's being created by some amazing people. Some great things are happening. And I think that is a good direction for Old Town Clovis, a good direction for all of the businesses, all of the restaurants, the retail, all around for everyone. So then I am a little bit beside myself when I see what happens on evenings like the Saturday evening of rodeo weekend. So Blast and Brew had scheduled live music out on the patio in Centennial Plaza for that Saturday evening from 5 to 8 p.m., keeping it on the early side, making sure that the only people being served any wine or beer, which is all Blast and Brew serves, was being served on Blast and Brew's patio while people were seated at tables. They were doing an amazing job with this, and I even took video of it as evidence in case somebody wanted to say otherwise. At about 7:45, 3 Clovis police officers came into the restaurant and said, due to the fact that people were sitting in the parking lot, listening to music, drinking hard alcohol, they were shutting down the music. They were also telling Blast and Brew that they were no longer able to serve alcohol, their beer and wine, to any of their customers on the patios, and that, basically reprimanded them. And my question is, we have what that does to a restaurant and what that does to the servers that are working very hard, that have been through COVID, that were making no money, and restaurants who have been through hard times, is very unfair. In my opinion, the police officers should have asked to leave in a parking lot. I can't fathom that if I were to have alcohol in a public area in Clovis, that the city of Clovis would shut themselves down as a slap on the hand for me doing something like this. And I thought to myself, what becomes then the motivation for all of these restaurants and venues trying to create an energy and an atmosphere and trying to bring new people to the area and doing these things? The band that was playing that night were a group of Fresno State graduates that have moved all over California and all came back together for rodeo weekend to bring energy and bring back just what everybody's been missing through COVID. And that is the kind of response that was received. Sadly, that's not the first time that's happened. Glastonbury has also dealt with a noise at 7:30 one evening. They were told that it was too loud and that they would have to stop the music because it was too loud. And I just question, as a city council, the culture, what culture are you trying to create? And, because we have the ability in Old Town Clovis and in Clovis to create something amazing. We have the ability to create an Old Town area that people want to go to, that is a destination of people. They say, let's go to Old Town, let's go out and there are great restaurants there, there's great shopping, great places to go, there's live music. And on one side, you have businesses trying to do these things, and on the other side, you've got their hands being slapped for it. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention, and I would like for the council to, at some point, put this on the agenda. I think the Williams family spoke to sort of that same energy. We see what the future holds. We see that outdoor dining, we see that live music. We are right next to the foothills and the mountains. We have everything that is needed to create an area that people want to come to. And I think your support is greatly needed. And I think some things need to change. And so I'm just here to express to you how I think this is an important issue that you all need to deal with. And we could really use your support as a community in helping to create that vibe in Old Town Clovis. Thank you for listening and thank you for your time.
Thank you, and we'll take your comments. And I agree with what Councilmember Whalen said earlier. We need to explore what's going to happen in the future in Old Town Clovis. And Old Town Clovis has a great reputation that in the past, it has been a very vibrant, young destination for entertainment. But it also has had a reputation that that same energy has got out of control. So we as a council have an obligation to look at it again and make sure that the vision that we all want as a city is one that every member of the city would want to see in Old Town Clovis. I'll steal another phrase from Councilmember Whalen. It's the heart of our city, and we want our heart of our city to be the best example of our city. So it's a great responsibility to make sure that Old Town is a great place and a great destination for everyone. So thank you for your comments. They're very important and good comments.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Hey, Chrissy, is that when Nick Wells was in town? Is that the time frame we're talking about?
It most certainly is.
Okay. Luke, is this the first time you've heard about this by chance?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so if you could maybe just give us an update as to what happened. I'd like to get some clarity on why
Okay.
we took the actions that we took.
Okay, will do.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chrissy.
As a council and as a city, we have to make sure that we, on one hand, protect the businesses downtown, help them be viable, help our citizens be able to come, enjoy themselves, have a nice meal, socialize, but we have to make sure that we don't, because we did go down the road 15 years ago where downtown was a bit of a pub crawl, and we'd have 50 people in line on a Tuesday night standing out in front of a bar, and at 2 a.m., between midnight and 2 a.m., most of the police department units were downtown because of the problem. So we have to make sure that we make sure that this issue that we plan it well, because otherwise we'll be a victim of our own success.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online?
No.
Okay, we got correspondence on.
Just the one from Chrissy indicated there. And then I also wanted to update council and just let you know that we're having some technical difficulties with our WebEx broadcast. So the video is not working right now, but the audio is working, just a FYI.
Okay. So we can now move on to our ordinances and resolutions. With respect to the approval of resolutions and ordinances, the reading of the title shall be deemed a motion to waive a reading of the complete resolution or ordinance, and unless there's a request by a council member that the resolutions or ordinance be read in full, further readings of the resolutions or ordinance shall be deemed waived by unanimous consent of the council. Consent calendar. Items considered routine in nature are to be placed upon the consent calendar. They will all be considered and voted upon in one vote as one item unless the council member requests individual consideration. Council members' vote in favor of the consent calendar is considered and recorded as separate affirmative votes in favor of each action listed. Motions in favor of adoption of the consent calendar are deemed to include a motion to waive the reading of any ordinance or resolutions on the consent calendar. For adoption of ordinances, only those that have received a unanimous vote upon introduction are considered consent items. Any council member wishing to pull an item from the consent calendar? No? Anyone in the public wishing to pull an item from the consent calendar? On the web?
None.
No?
No.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion regarding the consent calendar.
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So consent calendar passes with a 4 and aye votes and 1 absence. Administrative items. Administrative items are matters on the regular city council agenda other than public hearings. First one is item 5, consider adoption of an ordinance 21-02, a request to rezone approximately 23 acres located at the northeast corner of Nice and Miniwawa Avenue from the RA Single Family Residential Very Low Density Zone District to the Clovis R1 7500 Single Family Residential Low Density Zone District. Actually, we saw this last time we met. There was a vote of 4 ayes and 1 abstention because our council member Whalen had a legal, or no, it wasn't legal, but...
It wasn't legal. I just decided, I attend the Well Community Church, and I'm contributing to the fundraising effort that's going on for the construction there. I thought it would be appropriate for me just to abstain from that.
So there was an abstention. So it was 1 abstention and 4 aye votes. And staff members, Ricky, do we need to hear this
No.
today?
There will not be a staff report unless you request one,
All right,
but,
that's what I'm asking council. Do we need to hear anything?
No, I'll remain on the dais, though, this time, since it sounds like it's going to be...
Anyone from the public wishing to hear any more information, the public wishing to hear any more information regarding this item? Anyone on the web?
No.
There was no correspondence?
no.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes. The vote's 3 ayes, 1 abstention, and 1 absence. We'll move on to item 6. Consider approval of a resolution declaring the intentions to levy collection assessment for fiscal year 2021-22, authorizing the City of Clovis Engineering Department to conduct a property owner Proposition 218 proceedings approving the fiscal year 2021-22 preliminary engineers report and setting a public hearing for June 21, 2021 on or at such time thereafter for Benefit Assessment District number 95-1 Blackhorse Estates, and it'll be done by Sean Smith.
Good evening, Council. I'm here tonight to request your approval to initiate a Prop 218 vote to increase the annual assessment rates for the Blackhorse Assessment District located at the southeast corner of Miniwawa and Alluvial. We received many emails and phone calls this past week regarding tonight's action. We've prepared a packet for each of you that contains copies of the emails that we received up to 4:30 today. That should be on the dais in front of you. Hopefully you've had a chance to look it over. Now, I'd like to clarify a little bit about tonight's action. Tonight, we're asking you to consider the Prop 218 process. Your action will not affect the assessment rates without a passing vote of the owners. To help you in your decision, I'd like to give you a brief history of the Blackhorse Assessment District because it's very unique. The first portion of it was known as Renaissance and was originally developed in 1994 with public streets. The owners and the developer later decided that they wanted a gated subdivision, but forming a homeowners association would have been very difficult given that the subdivision and that some of the lots had already been sold. Because the owners and developer wanted a gated subdivision, we initiated the formation of the district in 1995 at their request, and the city needed a means to fund the maintenance of items such as the streets, the lights, and the gates instead of having a homeowners association. The district currently consists of 2 benefit areas. Those are known as Renaissance, Benefit Area 1, and Country View, Benefit Area 2. This is a very unique situation with this assessment district instead of a homeowners association. It is the only one in Clovis, and it might be one of the few in the state as well. The public streets were created in 1994, were subsequently remapped as private streets in order to create the district. The process included provisions for converting them back to public streets if or when needed. In 1996, California voters approved Proposition 218, and that established the process for requiring a vote by property owners in order to approve assessment increases. That's why we're here tonight, to talk about whether council agrees with staff to move forward with starting this vote. This year, this upcoming year represents the second year that Regency Property Management will be the property manager of this assessment district. This slide indicates what the current assessment rates are. $557 per year for Area 1, $461 per year for Area 2. The Prop 218 votes were typical in the early years of the district, but as of late, the last increase was for Area 1 in 2007, and for Area 2, the last increase was in 2008. The assessment covers very many components of routine maintenance, which are highlighted on this next slide here, both graphically and in text for you. Along with the routine maintenance, there were several capital projects that were proposed by the residents and Regency that were desired to be completed in this current fiscal year. Both areas are in need of slurry seal for their streets, but it was not approved for the current fiscal year due to a weak revenue stream. The only projects that are completed...
I'm sorry, you said due to what?
A weak revenue stream.
Thank you.
Sorry, I know the mask makes it a little difficult. And that's exactly why we're here tonight. We're here to talk about improving that revenue stream with the Prop 218 vote, and again, asking for your consideration whether you approve staff moving forward with this, putting it to a vote, and then ultimately being decided by the owners. The slurry seal project, while needed, it's costly and will have a significant impact to the fund balances. Slurry seal is typically performed as preventative maintenance, and it extends the life of the streets. Staff has been watching the street over the years and have not felt in the past that a slurry seal was needed, but we now feel that the condition of the streets are such that it's a good idea to perform this preventive maintenance. However, the cost of the work would reduce the reserves and would limit the ability for any unforeseen circumstances or emergency repairs to be made unless an increase to the annual assessment is approved. The increased assessment would also provide funding for the future street maintenance needs. Staff's recommendation is that the slurry seal project be performed for both areas at the same time, and because we would see a cost savings compared to if we did them in separate fiscal years. If council chooses to not approve staff to perform a Prop 218 vote, the slurry seal project has the potential to be deferred as it has been over the past few years. This slide shows you the increases that we are proposing. And again, this would not take place unless you approve staff to move forward with the Prop 218 vote and the owners approve it as well. It is per lot less than $90. For Area 1, it is $89.58. For Area 2 is $83.46, I'm sorry. Oh. One thing I forgot to mention, I will go back. This increase will improve the revenue stream, allowing staff to fund the slurry seal project in the upcoming fiscal year, and it also increases the ability for staff to start collecting for the next round of road maintenance projects. This slide gives you a brief timeline, and this is also assuming that you approve us to move ahead with the Prop 218 vote. So if approved, staff will mail out ballots to owners starting Wednesday, May 5th. There's a 45-day minimum requirement for the voting process before staff can open, tabulate, and declare the results of the vote. During this time, staff will make themselves available to answer questions from the owners. We're also prepared to post some additional information to the website this week. And we're also planning on holding a follow-up neighborhood meeting for the owners the week of May 17th. We want to give the owners every chance to make a well-informed decision. The results of the vote will be based on a simple majority of the ballots received by area. If the result for an area is no, their slurry seal may be deferred. If the result of the vote is yes, their slurry seal will begin to move forward immediately. You don't want to delay too long because there's a chance the cost could change on us. And they don't tend to change in our favor. They tend to increase the longer we wait. Okay. Should council decide to not approve staff's request, the engineer's report will be submitted on June 21st for approval, and it will indicate no change in the annual assessment, and it will also not indicate that a slurry seal will be performed in the next fiscal year. Should council approve staff's request, we will begin mailing ballots to all owners, and when we come back June 21st, we will be reading the results of that vote. This is a pretty complicated financial decision, and there's a lot that goes behind it, but I'm available here, as well as Mike Harrison, city engineer, should there be any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Questions?
Sean, I have a question. We've had, in the north of Herndon, we've had several fairly catastrophic failures of water mains that I'm sure has cost us a lot of money. In the event that there was something similar in the Blackhorse area, that would not be a responsibility of the city, correct? That would be responsibility of the management company to fix?
So the water mains are public. We own the water mains within the subdivision. So if there was a water main break, that would be the city's responsibility.
I mean, the damage to the roadway is what I'm referring to. Would we be responsible for fixing the roadway after that happened?
I believe we would, due to the fact that it's a city facility that caused the damage.
Okay. And from a roadway standpoint, these roads are 25 years old, even though they're in a gated community. What's the standard residential road age before you have to slurry it or do other maintenance?
Well, we usually like to do a slurry seal or some kind of crack sealing thing within 7 to 10 years and do something every 10 years thereafter. We like to do that. It's not typical. We just don't have the funds to do that on a regular basis. In the past several years, we have been taking a look at that streets, and we've had our street department look at them as well. They are holding up fairly well for the age that they are, but we really don't want to let them go too much longer before we give them some attention so that we can prolong the life.
And in the event that the homeowners decided not to go with the assessment and the roads get even worse because they're not being maintained, we're just kicking the can down the road then, pretty much.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Well,
Sean, in the 2007 increase, did they have to go through the same process we're doing today? Or it was?
Yes,
also a vote?
They did. There's been every rate increase since 96 had to go through a Prop 218 vote.
Okay, and that was the last time that we went through the same process?
2007 and 2008.
Okay. And so what I understand is the fees are collected and we take those fees and we manage it pretty much, or we account for it in finance, or the city does. Is that correct?
We collect the funds, and we have hired a property management company. There's been several over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Regency is the current one, and we rely on them to manage the contractors. But we do have oversight of them.
And as a resident, I've read a lot of what just were given to us. Do they get a yearly report, or because it's just like any other fee, like an LMD fee or something? We're not providing something regularly to those who we have assessed the fees and or taxes from?
I can talk to what we've done recently since I've been part of it. I don't really know what's happened in the whole history of the assessment district, but most of the information comes through the engineer's report. And that's at best an estimate. We haven't provided every year of financials to all the residents. The ones that have asked, we have, but we haven't made it public to all. We're doing something different this year.
Okay.
So we do typically have a meeting where we present the engineer's report. We've yet to do that because we're not considering that tonight. The engineer's report is drafted, and that report contains information that starts with the amount of balance that's in the account from the previous year. It outlines all the anticipated expenses for the following year so that we can make sure that we have enough assessments to cover that. And that's presented to the property owners and to the council every year, very similar to the LMD that we do.
And that cost, but for us, is the city administration cost. Is that correct? Sort of our fees, or our staff time costs.
So there's a couple of things. There's a district administrator cost.
Yeah, I was going to ask that next.
That's the cost of the property manager that we hire, which in this case is Regency.
Okay.
And then there is a line item in there for city administration costs, and that is city staff time.
Okay. And since we sort of initiated, can they ever get out of this benefit assessment district and become regular, like an HOA? Can they ever do that, the residents, or is that our action up here? So that way it just becomes like the rest of our developments?
So the spirit of the way this was set up is that it's not something I think that the city wanted to get involved with, and it was set up so that we made the streets private. The fact that they're private meant that we could not assign city resources to maintenance of them, so we formed the assessment district. The assessment district has provisions in it that if it comes to a place where we can't continue to maintain it, we have the ability to reclaim those streets as city streets, and in that case, the gates would be removed, and they would become city streets. And so we do have an interest in keeping the streets to a certain level of repair, because in the event that that happens, then we may have some large, costs to get the streets back up to par if they degrade too much.
It is our duty to maintain it, but should it ever get to a level that is undesirable, probably less than our standards, potentially, then we have to take it over and then get it up to grade.
And the only reason we would do that is if there's not enough funding to cover that, we would have to make them public again, and at that point, then we would be responsible for maintenance.
Okay. And Regency is just on for 2 years, I'm understanding. Is that what you just said earlier?
So Regency's in an ongoing contract. They will be hired by us until we want to terminate, or they want to terminate the contract.
Were they the management company when you came to us a couple of years ago?
They were just hired last year.
Okay.
Prior to that, there was a management company. It was Central Pacific that was doing the job for probably, I think, 11 years in total. They were consistently the property manager.
Okay. And then, I guess the process is, it's not the residents who wanted some improvements who came to us, we assessed it, then are creating a process. That's not, we assessed it ourselves and now are asking the residents if they want to vote for this fee. I mean, who's initiating all this? Is it us? Is it the residents? Is it a combination of some residents and us?
No, it's us, because we are recognizing that there's going to come a time when we need to do the maintenance to the streets. That's going to cause the cash flow to go basically dwindle and not be enough to sustain over time with the increasing costs of the regular maintenance. So, we need to increase the assessments in order to get that work done and to sustain the district.
Okay. And then prior to this evening, have we held meetings, or has it been more email and telephone conversations? Have we held sort of like a ability for people to come together and discuss it so they can understand what we're doing?
We did try to hold a virtual and in-person meeting.
Okay.
And the video didn't work that night as well. The audio did. But we gave all the owners an opportunity to hear what we were going to propose to you and why we were going to propose to you to do this Prop 218 vote. And we will meet with them again as we get more details about their questions. There's a lot of questions on the need and transparency, and we want to give them that so they make a well-informed vote. I don't remember exactly when we held that meeting, but it was several weeks ago.
I only read people who are opposed, and I guess because it's coming out of their pocketbook, but are there some who are in support that we don't know about in this neighborhood that you may have heard?
So the sense I get is that the residents are not necessarily opposed to the increase. They, I think, have not received the information that they'd like to see about the accounting.
Yeah.
And we do owe them that, and we intend to provide it. In fact, we put it together a lot of that stuff in the last few days that with finance working on the budget, we've been able to get some of that information. It goes back a long way. We've got 10 years worth of data that we're going to provide and make available. We're also going to meet and discuss what it all means. Because part of the criticism is each year we're doing an engineer's report. It takes the past year's balance, then it estimates going forward. And it's hard for the property owners and it's hard for us to reconcile, and figure out what's going on based on those annual reports. They're not necessarily something that you can follow through the years. So we've gone back and provided additional information. Well, we've acquired the additional information, and we're going to provide it to the property owners. And I think that's their major concern, is that they just want to see what's happening. But I think they're not necessarily opposed to the increase.
Is there a way, and I don't know if it's tonight, but since we're talking about an increase in assessment, in which they can select amongst themselves someone who can be this liaison or representative who works closer with us, so that way they have someone they can go to? And I just feel like it seems like everybody's coming to us, right? So there's no coordination of this neighborhood, and we are it, and then I don't know how busy we are, and we must be swamped as well to be able to provide so much services, given the amount of fees that we collect.
I guess they could organize and do that. I'm not sure how we would determine that everybody has made that selection of the representative and that they represent everybody, because they don't have really an organization. They're just, they're individual property owners. So we will attempt to make a very concise and easy to understand document that they can look at and hopefully understand, and make ourselves available for 1 or 2 meetings so that they can come and ask questions. And yes, it's going to take some time, but I think it's going to be worthwhile.
And then, just so that we own up to what, if it was us, so the past, I guess we'll call it non-transparency, has that been our responsibility? Or is it the management company's responsibility? Because it seems to be, we collect the money to do this, and I've never seen it. So whose responsibility was it all this time, so that way we're here and we're trying to improve that?
Well, I think we're trying to be available to provide the information that they're asking for. And like I said, the engineers' reports for many years have been fine. They kind of roughly outlined what was happening. Though they were estimates, they were they were adequate. The property owners, just want more detail. They want actual expenditures, actual revenues, which we're going to provide. And they want to understand why it is that we need the increase. They want to see the numbers. I think there's a feeling from some that because of the sequencing of the reports, that it appears that there's some funds missing somewhere. There are not. It's just a matter of that you can't put the reports together year after year, because each year they're an estimate more than they are the actual expenditures. And I think what we're going to provide is going to provide the information that will make that more clear.
And then for this fee that we collect, the $13,800 for the district administrator and $8,009, that is something we can't do in-house. Those funds will not be able to pay for us to do it instead of having some third party, or is that arrangement much more efficient, much better for this type of what we're doing? Because, or can that be something in which we take care of it and there's never a third party involved? It's just us and our residents.
I don't really have the answer for whether it's going to be something we can do for that price. I'm not really sure. This was specifically set up this way to minimize the amount of city staff that's used in the beginning. We can always change the way we do that, but that's the intent when it was set up.
As Mike said, this was set up really to be the most efficient. This is an unusual situation. We generally are, this is the equivalent of an HOA that we're collecting the money for. And it was a convoluted process that brought it to be. It's something that we shouldn't have done. We'll never do again. We don't want to get deeper into this. We don't want to start committing more of our management time or more of our work time, because we pay prevailing wage. There's a lot more cost associated with us doing it. It changes, it puts a bigger burden on the finance and everybody. So the current situation where we kind of collect the assessments and then pass it on to the management company is kind of the best of a unusual situation. For us to go deeper into it would be very problematic.
And are what they are being assessed less than what a LMD currently is being assessed, or are they kind of pretty comparable, the amount or the percentage?
For less than
like a regular LMD that
or like an HOA?
Or HOA, yeah.
Well, it's hard to compare apples to apples. I know that there are a lot of HOAs out there that have fees that are substantially higher than this on an annual basis.
Yes, this is less than an LMD, but that's because an LMD doesn't cover the private streets, the gate, and all that. It's just landscaping and possibly lighting. For what is covered under this assessment district, I would say it is generally less than HOA pays.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I think that even in Harlan Ranch, it's like $400 a month or something like that as an HOA fee. So the fee isn't that particularly heavy, but Vong, you opened up a thought related to, okay, well, what happens if at some point the quality of the streets are such that it doesn't make, we're just not going to allow that in the city of Clovis. And so I think that, Mike, you had responded to that question related to, we just take down the fence, the gated area, and then we would be the ones who would be responsible for all of the street maintenance associated with it. And presumably these folks would not have to pay a fee anymore. We would just dissolve this assessment district. So I would like to talk a little bit about that. I think there have been times when we've put the vote out to Blackhorse Estates folks, and they have disagreed with an increase in the fee amount. So how is it that we could go about just eliminating this assessment district? What would be the process to do that? And then really, I don't know what because I don't live there, I don't know what the value that this increased assessment has for the residents of there, and that's up to them to determine. I know it's gated. I don't know if there's some other value that comes across to the Blackhorse owners, and maybe some of them are here and they can address whether there is some value that comes for them as a result of paying this fee. But can somebody explain to me the process to just eliminating this assessment district and how we could take down those fences and the security gate and what that would look like?
So the assessment district was set up with it was called a street, I can't remember what it was called. It's called a street covenant.
It was a street covenant that was recorded in 95.
Yeah.
When the district was formed.
So it has a provision in it whereby the streets are offered to the city for dedication, because they're currently privately owned. And then, upon acceptance of that offer of dedication by the city now owns the street and takes on the maintenance responsibility and retains all, I'm not sure exactly what happens with the funds, but it alludes to the fact that we retain the funds for the maintenance that we've collected, any fund balance that we have in there. And we would be responsible for moving the gates, and from that point forward, they would be public streets and maintained by us.
And I presume that there is something in there related to some landscape, because one of the notes talked about, hey, you know, there have been some new flowers that have been planted in front of the gates, kind of as a feature, an entry feature, I guess. These folks are already paying property taxes. They're already paying sales taxes when they shop in the city of Clovis. They're already paying into the LMD that is appropriate for their geographical area.
Mm-hmm.
I just, you know, at some point I think that probably isn't going to, they'll have to tell us, but it doesn't make sense to keep this assessment district and just to take down the gates, and we would roll in and take care of the streets, and they would save, you know, $500, $600 a year. And maybe that's worth it to them. But in order to make that happen, they would have to vote to turn over the assessment district?
No, I think that's fully in the city's discretion as to
Okay.
when that, and if that should happen.
All right. And we would, that would be a decision up to the council, presumably,
Yeah.
and not an administrative decision.
Right.
And then, you know, if we decided to go that way, we would just remove the gates, I guess. And I don't know who would be responsible for the maintenance on the landscape portion. That's that entry feature. But maybe it would just kind of be them somehow.
Yeah, it would be
Volunteer.
it would be incorporated in the LMD somehow.
Okay.
I think.
We'd figure out how to pay for it
Yeah.
that way. All right. Thank you. I appreciate the answers to the questions.
More questions?
I just, is there a way of putting on this 218 election, can we put that question on that ballot saying, do you want the gate to be taken down and the city to take this over? Is that possible?
In terms of the 218 election, I don't think that's the question that's being asked, but we could certainly poll the residents and see if they...
I mean, I certainly don't want to force somebody to do something as a, you know, just a arbitrary act to the council if they don't want that. But if they don't want that, then they need to not kick the can down the road, I guess.
Okay. We can certainly do a poll if that's what the council would like us to do.
Okay, let's start from the beginning, because that's how it started this whole mess. And I want to set the record straight, or at least attempt it. The people who bought into this development were promised something, and that it was a gated community. Is that correct? Yes. Is that correct? Yes. Right? The city can agree with that?
Yes.
But it wasn't real. Is that right?
In 94, when it was first developed, it was public streets, no gate, and then...
So they were promised one thing,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't real. And by somebody, developer, I would assume. To make it real, the city agreed to this assessment district where they kept the gates that they were promised, but then they would also then become part of this assessment district and collect their own funds for the maintenance of these roads. And so there was some kind of agreement. If you want the gates as promised, you'd have to come and agree to this. You collect the funding, we agree to keep the gates, and everything's hunky-dory, right? As long as there's enough money to maintain the roads. Is that what happened initially?
Yep.
And I believe this was done by the famous city council of yesteryear. The infamous, the famous, anyway.
That's what we've been able to piece together. Yeah.
Right? So they gave us this problem that we still have to contend with 26 years down the road. But today we do have solutions, I think, that were mentioned by the council members, that this agreement has never been a very good agreement for the city, because every time we need more money, it's not quite half, but a large portion of those that live in these neighborhoods don't want it, don't want to be assessed anymore. And I really don't like being assessed anymore where I live, because it's more money. But that was the agreement. You want gates, you have to share in the cost of those, of the city streets. And Bob says it right, and I think everybody said it. The city can always take down the gates and make those public roads, and go back to what should have been, what was there to begin with. And all this having to come here every time, and having these two neighborhoods come before us, and because there is no HOA, there is nothing that guarantees this. Never has been. It's been a problem every time this thing comes before us, and we play referee, and it's not the role of the city. I think our city manager said it right. We're an expensive referee. We shouldn't be a referee. We shouldn't be the collector of this money. And I don't know how we got into it. None of us were on the council, but I guess it happened. I think a question or a survey or something like, because eventually this is going to happen. It's 26-year-old roads. One of these days they're going to fail, and they're not going to like the bill. And we're not going to like what's going to be there. So what are we going to do? We're going to knock the gates down and go rebuild the roads, because that's what we have to do. And that's going to be very expensive. And where are we going to get the money to do that? Out of the whole city's road funds, right? Isn't that where it comes from?
Yep.
So we need a plan for and I didn't hear your answer, Mike. How long do roads last, even with the slurry seal?
Well, it prolongs the life.
But let's assume we do a slurry seal, but how long will it last?
Well, it'll last, yeah, I mean, we have residential streets out there that have been out there for 35, 40 years, but they've been receiving regular maintenance and crack sealing.
So if we don't maintain them, they'll fall apart.
Yeah.
We'll have to dig them.
Yeah, and we have other streets that don't last as long because of the soil conditions underneath. These particular streets seem to be lasting fairly well.
You've been giving them lessons? That's an attorney question. Answer, it depends. Okay. Okay.
Good job, Mike.
You've been going to law school, huh? That's an attorney answer. Okay. But, so I guess I'm giving more of a comment than asking questions, because we got to split the baby here somehow.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
One of the reasons, it feels like one of the reasons that this has become so expensive for the residents is that it's difficult to find somebody to manage this assessment district. There have been times we would put it out there, and it seems like nobody would be interested because it just didn't make any sense from a financial perspective to have basically a property management outfit come in and manage it for so little money. Because from their perspective, it's not a big moneymaker for them. So we try to find somebody to handle it, and then they say, well, yeah, we'll handle it, but it's going to cost this much money, and it ends up being a lot of money. That's my impression, and I just want to verify whether that's a correct assessment of what some of the issues have been related to finding a property management firm for this outfit.
Yeah, I think that's a fair characterization. Though the most recent property manager matched the price of the previous property manager who didn't raise their price for 11 years. So we've been able to keep the cost down, but there were few that were interested in the project.
And Mike, you answered that there is, and I saw Sean say yes to, there's an LMD around that residential area? I don't think so. Is there an LMD in that area? That's an old area.
I think all of the city of Clovis is under some form of
Not some portion. There's a donut.
If,
maybe
Luke knows, but, it's my understanding that the streets, the major streets, Minnewawa and Alluvial, are maintained by our landscape maintenance district. It's only the entry feature right at the gates, those areas that are maintained by this particular.
That's my understanding too, that they are assessed through the LMD for the perimeter maintenance.
Okay, so there is an LMD?
Yeah, they should be in LMD Zone 1, which covers the street side landscaping and medians on the major thoroughfares north of Herndon. Typically, in a case like this, if this wasn't a private community, any enhanced landscaping that they have at the gate area or something like that would be another overlay, a smaller LMD zone just for those improvements. There isn't one there because it's private property, so it's managed through the assessment district. So they would be in the LMD, but there's really no LMD funding for maintaining any landscaping specific to this neighborhood, any enhanced landscaping.
So stated another way, the LMD that they pay for is really the LMD that everybody has to pay for, but doesn't really get the specific benefit of. It's really kind of a, you know, you're driving down Minnewawa, you see some landscaped areas that are on the side of the street, or even in the median there, and that's LMD funds. It's not benefiting any particular community, just broadly those people that travel in that area.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions? Go ahead.
Are the fees estimated here higher for the district administrator? Is it higher than what it is now, or is it still the same, or is there a sharp increase like what some of these residents are saying? It's the 13,008 and then the 8,009. I know we all say we've been saying that it's cheaper than any management, but the residents only see what they've seen, so they've seen what it used to be and what we're proposing tonight.
So I think in general, some of the costs were increased by 3% just for cost of living. District administrator, I don't think was one of those. They kept their cost flat. So that particular portion of the cost is not increasing with this particular year. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then I do want to say that I think we do need to communicate better moving forward with the residents on how we report these, because I think that has led to the confusion. And if we are able to show them what they are asking, I think the ask, like you said earlier, is not the concern, it's sort of show us, so that way the trust is rebuilt. And so I think we need to do that. So, but thank you for, I think this is very complex, and I think, Jose, you've been here the longest, and I think you probably have the greatest understanding of what's going on. So thank you for helping answer all those questions.
Okay. This time I'll open it to the public. Anyone wishing to comment on this item, please come to the podium, give us your name, and we know where you live.
Oh, excuse me. Steve Donahue couldn't make it because of his kids. He's going online, and then I'll follow up with him.
Okay.
Hi, this is Steve.
Unmuted.
Okay. Hi, this is Steve Doherty. I live in the Benefit Area 1 at 24 Birch Avenue. I think the biggest concern that I have with this is that it's no secret that the roads have needed maintenance. Over the last 26 years, no maintenance has been done, but the city engineer, as part of the engineer's report, should have been allocating assessment fees collected from the residents, specifically for the maintenance of the roads, whether it's deposited into the general fund for a future large project such as the slurry seal. Our questions are more around why these funds have not been allocated to ensure the ongoing maintenance of the roads when it is the engineer who is creating these allocations of the funds, and the department knows that at some point the roads are going to need to be resurfaced or slurry sealed. So I think our questions are, if the city is developing the allocation of the funds, why is it that, and they knew that at some point the roads would need to be maintained and those costs are estimated and known, why were those assessment fees not allocated to ensure at some point in the future that the funds would be available to do the slurry? And if they have been allocating funds for street maintenance, where are those funds that have been collected for 26 years for road maintenance? Where are they now? And what have they been used for? So that's our biggest concern, is the lack of visibility of where these funds are being allocated and spent, as well as the city engineer's office not anticipating the need for allocating funds to specifically resurface or maintain the roads in the areas. We don't control the allocation. We pay the fees so that the engineer, as they do the reporting, allocates the fees appropriately based on what needs to be maintained within the community. So that's our biggest concern. The $90 or $89 is relatively a small increase, especially over the last 14 years. But our concern is that fee going to go towards specifically maintaining the roads, and will it be enough going forward and ensure that we will have maintained roads well into the future? And is the reporting by the engineer and the allocation of the funds adequate to ensure ongoing maintenance of our community?
Sean or Mike, so what I'm hearing is, we know that there's going to be some kind of major cost down the road. Do we set aside some of the money that's coming in over the years? That way we have some bank down the road for those capital improvements?
The way that the fund works is we have these set costs that you see in the engineer's report. Anything that comes in that's over that cost carries over as a fund balance year to year. And for the past 10 years or so, we've been building some fund balance. There's enough money in that bank now to do the slurry seal, but as soon as we do that slurry seal, the fund will drop down to a point where it may not be sustainable, and that's why we want to add to the assessment so that we can again start to build the fund for the next time we need to do maintenance on that street.
So there's a fund balance, and it's enough to pay for the slurry seal this year, and once used, there'll be zero to do.
So there will be enough money for the next few years, and I have a graph that I can share with you. It may make it clearer. That unfortunately the property owners can't see it. If you'd like, I can share that with you if we're going to get into that kind of detail.
And confirm the web isn't working, or as far as graphics?
So we've been working on this today and trying to put this into a format that's easy to understand exactly what's happening with the fund. This is something that we intended to meet with and share with the property owners so we can answer the question that they've been asking, what's happening to the money. So if you look at the chart that says without assessment increase, the gray line represents the building fund balance. The yellow line is the expenditures. The orange line is the assessments. There's some interest in there and things as well. The bottom blue line is the working capital line, where that gives us half a year of cash in the bank that we can use, because we have to wait half a year once the assessments are approved. We don't actually receive the cash until December. So we need that working capital left in the bank. So you can see that the gray line builds, and it's up to a point where we can now afford to do a slurry seal. As soon as we do that, you see the yellow line spike up. That's the expenditure. And the gray line drops down to a point that's just above the working capital line, and thereafter it starts to dwindle away, and you can see that the yellow line and the orange line, the yellow line's higher, the expenditures are higher than the revenues. So that becomes unsustainable. If you turn the paper over, excuse me, I pressed the button. With the assessment increase, you can see that we make that same expenditure, and then we begin to build that fund balance back up, so that 10 years from now we have a balance in the bank that allows us to do street maintenance again. And the cash flow, the orange line is above the yellow line. We have revenues that are exceeding expenditures. So that's what we're trying to set straight here with the increased assessment. And we just got the information. We put that together today. We just barely got it done before we came here. But I think it tells the story. It paints the picture of what is happening, and that, you know, there's not. We have been building a fund. The fund is there, but as soon as we use it, we won't be able to stay in for many more years.
Mayor, can I just come? And I think we're all doing the same things, and I think the concern of the residents, which is valid, is when they look at the old engineer's report, they don't see what you just presented today that shows capital improvement projects, slurry seal. And so even though we've been building to be able to do that, they get a report and it doesn't show it, so they think we're not doing anything. You know, we're just, and so I think that contributes to sort of the misunderstanding that we're not holding or we're not preparing to do what we're wanting to do. But I think your outline today, what you presented to us, where it shows capital improvement projects, I mean, I think that really, it would ease the concerns of, if I lived there, going, okay, you do have that expense, it is here, and finally, this reserve that we have been building, I never saw it before, so I'm thinking, what did you do with it? You should have been prepping for it, and we've always been prepping for it, is sort of the statement I'm getting from staff, correct? Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then the follow-up statement is, once used, now our fund is so diminished that we won't be able to do much afterwards, so we have to start over again, and that's why we're asking for this assessment this year.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so I think our messaging has been poor, I guess. We can make this available to the...
Oh, we plan to do that within the next couple of...
some of the neighbors, that way they can take it back to their neighbors.
We intend to get this out to the neighborhood this week, so...
Well, they probably need it tomorrow, so because I think it's messaging that's hurting us here on this item. Anyone else wanting to comment on this item?
I am fully vaccinated. Do you mind if I read?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. Mayor Flores, council members, thank you for this time. My name is Bill Syvertson. I live at 105 Chenault in Clovis with my wife, Cheryl. We actually moved into the district in July of 1995. We were the third home there, and we love it. It's the best neighborhood we've ever been in. As I've listened to the comments here tonight, many of you kind of stole my thunder, and I appreciate that. I have a real intuitive members here, so appreciate that. I went ahead and talked to the 45 well, I didn't get to all 45, but I did communicate with 39 homes. And the reason I did that, and by the way, all but one was supportive of what I'm saying, but I want to be right up front. I don't represent anybody. That's one of the reasons we moved into this development. Even though I was the third one there, it was already promoted as a benefit assessment district. So I don't remember the exact dates and so on, but I do remember coming before this body back in '95 to encourage you to adopt the benefit assessment district. So I guess if you want to throw tomatoes, you can throw them at me. But we've been very pleased with that because for whatever it's worth, HOAs are not all it's cracked up to be. One of the things, I'm not sure why it's taken so long, but I do want to thank the engineering department that we've got some momentum going with reports. Most everybody I've talked to, and again, I'm not answering for everybody, the $90 is immaterial. Okay, that's not why we're here, or why I'm here anyway. But there are some on fixed incomes it does make a difference. We want the gated communities, the gated community. We like where we're at, so that's not an issue. But we want transparency. We want to know what's going on, and I appreciate your comments there. That's all it is. It's a kind of communication issue. So the number of things that I had lined up to speak on, I won't, but there are a few things that I do need to address as I'm trying to pick and choose now because I was basically starting over with my little talk here. On the financials, I have a copy of an engineer's report that was included in Resolution 95-4. That's 1995, okay? And it's dated May 1st, 1995. And it includes the estimated budgets all the way out to year 28. Okay, we're in year 20, what is it, 21? No, 26 right now. What's interesting is right at the beginning, there was about, of the $60,000 in assessments, this was before it was divided into two, there was about $7,000 budgeted for contingency. And I could go on, I'm not going to take you through a year-by-year blow on this, but we go right up to year 21, 2016, still had the contingency of $5,000. By the way, the assessments moved up very little. But when we move into year 26 this year, still had a contingency of $6,700, $6,800. So my question is, if this was planned all along to have this contingency, if this was planned all along, a street surface maintenance was $7, $8 grand, or about $7 grand a year, where's the money? See, that's where everyone's concerned about. Where's the money? And estimates that are laid out here, they're estimates. But I used to run a business. In fact, I, at one time, was on the board of directors of the Clovis Chamber of Commerce as well. So I understand some things that go on, and the whole focus is to help the citizens. But any business runs by financials. It says in the management agreement that was signed in November by Regency and in December by the city. I don't recall who signed it right now, to be honest with you. It's in here somewhere. That, lost my train of thought here. Oh, that Regency would produce the financial reports and share those with engineering. Sean, correct me if I'm wrong. But the city then is the owner of them. So that's all we want. If the reports are already developed, then send them to us. Let us know. And you know, it doesn't have to be a mass distribution. I mean, one of the things that, in fact, I came asking for 4 things. Yeah, I see it here somewhere. 1, we'd like to get those financials, and I'd like to get them before May 5. Not too far away, is it? All right? And the reason being, I just found out tonight that the ballots are going out May 5. Well, if we, and I appreciate that we're meeting May 17th, but in the hustle and bustle of life, many people are going to get this and vote, and they're done. They don't know what's going on. And so I think everyone, citizen in Clovis, deserves the right to vote by knowing what they're voting for. And that's the bottom line. So I'm going to go out on a limb here and ask that you postpone this till after the 17th. That way, we can come together and look at the reports. We should have the reports. It's easy to forward those on. They're produced by Regency. We can look at them, and if we can assess them ahead of time, then so be it. It's not about the $90, but it's about, at some point, there's got to be accountability. And we don't have any accountability right now, and I think that's what's alienating a lot of people in the neighborhood. Everyone to a T, except the one person, indicated they just can't believe that we can't get this information. It's not that we haven't been asking. I know it was mentioned earlier that they get reports to those who asked. We've been asking, but there's no reports. So that's the first thing. We'd like to get those financial reports. Something simple. Income statements, cash flow. We just don't want to know what's going on. Okay. The second thing I came to ask for is that we would like a competitive bidding process. We've had Regency before. We had them before Central Pacific, and then Central Pacific, and then Regency. So we understand how things work there. And I know that there's some subsidiary organizations in the property management that instead of bidding, they can go farm out to their subsidiary organizations so the money stays in the same pockets. We just want competitive bids. $6,000 for that landscape flowers up front. It's pathetic. I mean, there's hardly anything there. $7,000 to do the gates. I mean, you know, let's just get some competitive bids. The third thing, I'm not sure who mentioned it, but having a citizens advisory group, someone had mentioned that, boy, made my heart sing. We have some property management people experience in property management in our neighborhood. We have a lot of professionals in our neighborhood. And so we don't like to be kept in the dark. So just having a citizens group, I think, would be just wonderful. And then the final thing, and I may be stepping over bounds on this one, I don't know, and I'll be happy to stop talking if you tell me this is not appropriate at this point, but when Prop 13 was passed, and I remember that, I lost a job over Prop 13 back in the years ago. But benefit assessments cannot be based on property value. I know I'm not telling you anything you don't know already, but for many in here may not know that. The benefit assessment, though, is built on a benefit formula, which begs the question, what's the benefit formula? I mean, is there a certain thing that we need to be aware of? I mean, there's some things we can do. We want to keep our costs down as much as possible, just like any good business leader. Keep your costs down. And so those four things, I think, are key. I think it would keep everyone communicating. It's open, it's honest, and I didn't mean to say honest in terms of it. I'm not claiming it's dishonest, okay? But the point is we need to have some transparency. That is so key. So I got a lot more, but that's you've been here enough tonight, so.
Can I ask a question of Bill?
Sure.
So, first of all, thank you for getting to the real nut of the issue, which is really in front of us, and that is whether we're going to, go forward with the Prop 218 proceedings, which would include an election of some kind by the property owners there, because that's really the question that's there in front of us. And we've been talking about a lot of issues that would really be issues to be addressed as part of the election process, whether it makes sense to vote in favor or against the increased assessment. But you said that, it might make sense to just have that election after May 17th. That makes sense to me. But I did want to ask you, it seems to me as though there was already one meeting that was held with some of the homeowners there, and it seemed like it was well attended. And what I don't want to get into is where we have a situation where it's like, okay, we have a second meeting, and then people ask for more information, and then they say, well, let's postpone the vote for another time. And so if we do choose to continue this to, or at least call for the election at a later time, sometime after May 17th, and then the public hearing at an appropriate time after that instead of June 21st, is your sense that there's going to be people who are going to say, well, I still want more time to work through this?
I don't sense that. Again, I would have to talk to everyone individually, but we want to work all together. I mean, it's not we're trying to fight. That's not all what it's about. We want this to be the best city around. That's why we moved to Clovis. It is. But I don't think we have the right information. And I guess part of it is calling to the forefront. We just want transparency. Give us the reports. We don't want to do anybody's job. We just want to know what's going on.
Sure. And you may get the reports tomorrow, but then there may be some questions and some explanation that's necessary that could be addressed at the May 17th, and then people would be allowed to make a more fully informed decision after May 17th, is your point. Is that right?
I would go on a limb, and I'm seeing a lot of heads shaking, so.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's a reasonable goal.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay.
Thanks, Mayor.
All right.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment in the chamber on this item? Anyone online?
No.
And we have correspondence.
Nothing beyond what you have before you.
Okay. Okay, I'll bring it back to the council.
So what would be the ramifications of us setting out new dates for them after May 17th? Is it, I mean, we're just going to have to pick a new date after May 17th and then have them come back after June 21st instead of the June 24th date that we had?
So I believe we may lose the opportunity to get into the tax roll for this fiscal year. I think our assessment engineer's on the line. Maybe he can confirm that, but I think that's what's in jeopardy. So we would be looking at being able to implement the actual assessment on the following assessment year.
I don't know if that's a good idea. Do you have somebody, who's our assessment engineer?
Ed Espinoza, and I believe he's still on the line. So maybe I can share some more on that too. Just so we're asking to start the Prop 218. We're not. When we send out the ballots aren't due back until 45 days later.
Is that a requirement that it has to be at least 45 days? And that's why we set the June 21st date?
That's why we're coming back June 21st to count the ballots.
And it has to be by July 1st that everything is wrapped up, presumably, in order to get on. Well, I'll listen to the assessment engineer.
Eddie, you're muted.
I am. Am I coming through?
Yes.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Good evening, City Council. This is Ed Espinoza with Francisco and Associates. So really the time constraint, as your city engineer mentioned, is the deadline to submit the assessments to the county auditor's office, which for Fresno County, it is typically late July. I haven't received the exact deadline for this upcoming fiscal year, but it is always late July, so we can assume that that's going to be the case for this year. With that being said, I don't believe there's an issue with postponing the public hearing or rescheduling the public hearing for a council meeting in July, whether it be the first or second council meeting in July, and holding the public hearing then. If council were to choose to do so, the only thing we have to make sure of is that we mail out the notices and ballots a minimum of 45 days prior to the public hearing. And as long as we do that, we would be meeting the time requirements stated in Prop 218. So I believe if council were to decide to postpone the public hearing to a meeting in July, to allow the property owners more time to digest the information that will be made public, we could do so at your direction.
Thank you, Ed. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion, then maybe we can talk about it a little bit more. I'm going to move I am moving, that we approve the resolution that's set forth in attachment 2, and it is a resolution of the City Council declaring the intention to levy and collect assessments for fiscal year 2021-22, authorizing the City of Clovis Engineering Department to conduct a property owner Proposition 218 proceeding, approving the fiscal year 2021-22 preliminary engineers report, and setting a public hearing for, I'm going to say, July 12th?
Not the 5th?
Well, I'm thinking we're probably not going to meet on July 5th, the day after.
We're scheduled to meet on July 5th.
Oh, we are? Okay. All right, then, well, I think the problem with that from my perspective is going 45 days backwards. So I'm going to say July 12th, and then have the ballots get distributed by May 19th.
And looking at the calendar, it's Monday, July 5th, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to be off, so it's going to be the following day, July 6th, our council
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with July 12th, just from a 45-day perspective, so that people have plenty of time to review the information.
I just second that, but before we vote on it, I want to say something real quick. For the people in Blackhorse, I understand your frustration with lack of information, but as a city, we're not in a property management business, so I think everybody's kind of outside their lane here in this situation. So I understand your frustration, and sympathize with staff having to deal with something that normally is not a function of engineering staff. And that's all I have.
We have a motion and a second.
Hey, just a couple comments
Okay.
as well, yeah. You know, I too would like us to show ownership to the residents and provide a full accounting for the past 26 years of what's going on. I know it doesn't have to be everything, but when you look at it, if it's a couple thousand a year, 26, you know, it's 150,000 already for just the contingency. And so when you look at it, 44,000 that we kind of collect in just one area, multiplied by 26, it's a lot. So I think it is very reasonable to feel like we are the stewards of it. How can we assure them that moving forward, we will do that? And I think you already are doing that already, Mike, so thank you for that. So I just want to say that. The other is, moving forward, if we can look into potentially working with the neighbors with that advisory, whatever, a citizens group from, I think that will really help, and sort of the communication between us and them, so.
Thank you, Ron. I guess I'll make a comment too, since everyone else. One thing that group of citizens, of neighbors will find out is that this city and these staff members have bent over backwards to get you the most economic service for what you get there. I remember cases of broken gates and how we struggled to get those broken gates fixed in your development, and finding gardeners that would come and do this, service your neighborhood, and how they did everything to make sure that we got the most economic gardener out there. And so competitive bids are great, but they have to compete for the bids when they don't want to compete for the bids because there's nothing to compete for. It's kind of difficult. So I welcome a neighborhood committee because they will find out the struggles staff has had over the years. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor for the due date July 12th. So for the public hearing. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. So the motion carries 4 with 1 absence.
Can I ask for a quick clarification on that, though? So we're moving out the public hearing
To July 12th.
12th, but are we also moving out the date that the ballots are?
Yeah, I want the ballots.
The 45.
Or do we want to keep the ballots going out on the 5th and
No, I think
give them more than 45 days?
No, we don't want them to go out before the hearing on the 17th. So I think I said the 19th or the 20th, I can't remember which it was as part of the motion.
The whole idea is that we don't want people making their decisions prior to receiving new information.
Okay, thank you.
So, okay, so that's 6.
Did you already put them in the mailbox?
Okay, item 7, consider introduction of an ordinance, a request to amend Articles 1, 10, and 11 of Chapter 2.2 of Title 2 of the Clovis Municipal Code pertaining to the appointment of city clerk and city treasurer, and staff will be John Holt.
Thank you, Mayor. The recommendation this evening is to approve amendments to the code pertaining to the positions of city clerk and city treasurer. The purpose of the amendments are twofold. One is going to be to remove the requirement that the city clerk be appointed at the department head level, and 2, to clean up the requirements associated with appointment of both the clerk and the treasurer. Brief history of the 2 positions. The city clerk has been, my son's calling me, sorry. The city clerk has been an elected position until March of 1997. It went from elected to appointed at that election. The appointment of the city treasurer by the city council has been in place until at least 1988. The finance director also held the position of city clerk and city treasurer for approximately 30 years prior to 2005, which was a Mike Prandini retirement. I was appointed the city clerk, and Rob Woolley was appointed the finance director and city treasurer shortly after Mike's retirement. In 2009, during the recession, the two positions of city clerk and assistant city manager were eliminated, and a single position of assistant city manager / city clerk was created. As I indicated, the city treasurer has been appointed to the finance director as far back as records show. In summary, staff has recommended the code be updated to reflect the current practice of how the two are appointed. The summary of the recommendations are: 1, remove the requirements that the city clerk be assigned at the department head level. 2, have the city clerk appointed by the city manager and ratified by the city council. And 3, to appoint the finance director as treasurer, appointed by the city manager and again ratified by the city council. Approval of the above would better align the code with the current practice of how these appointments are made. Finally, the recommendation, again, is for the city council to approve amendments to the code pertaining to the two positions. That concludes staff's report, and we are available for questions.
Questions for John? None? Oh, my God. I don't know.
Well, I don't wanna let you down, Mayor.
I don't know, but I don't know what to do.
I was so close.
Well, okay, so
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So we're gonna be modifying, the code sections 2.2.103. That presently reads, and this is under the list of responsibilities for the city manager, under B1, it says to appoint, discipline, and dismiss all subordinate employees of the city except the city attorney, the city clerk, the city treasurer, and the department heads. And I presume that's in place because the city manager does not have as presently written in the code, does not have the full authority over the city clerk and the city treasurer. Only because that rests with the council.
Correct.
So after all of this, then it's going to read that the city manager can appoint, discipline, and dismiss all subordinate employees of the city except the city attorney and the department heads. And I'd always thought that you had the authority to discipline and dismiss all subordinate employees, including the department heads. But I guess you don't unless you get council, I guess, concurrence. And that's what this is addressing, I guess, is that it shifts the city clerk and city treasurer to a position where you'll have some authority over them with council, I'll call it confirmation. Is that how it would end up being? Did I confuse everybody with my question?
Oh, so, yeah, don't tell the department heads I don't have any. Taking away my mojo here. I think item 2 says to appoint, discipline, and dismiss all department heads subject to council confirmation.
Right.
So
you can discipline department heads, and you can dismiss department heads, and you can appoint department heads, but that has to be subject to council confirmation, right?
The way I read this, yes.
Okay. And when it comes to how it is right now, you can appoint, discipline, and dismiss all subordinate employees except the department heads. I know we're not focused on, I'm focused on the department heads, but it's not the purpose of this change. The purpose of this change is for the city treasurer and the city clerk.
I think I can do that with council confirmation.
Well, if we approve this, you can. Presently, you can't have anything to do with the appointment, discipline, and dismissal of the city attorney, the city clerk, and the city treasurer.
Item 2 under that is already there, correct?
Correct.
So, item 2 under paragraph 2.2103B2 says to appoint, discipline, and dismiss all heads of departments subject to council confirmation. So I think I can do that now with council confirmation. So this really doesn't affect the department head standing as much as it affects, my understanding, the city clerk.
So, Scott, I want you to help me out here because I'm not such a great wordsmith. But the way I read B1, and track me here, without the strike-throughs, the city manager can appoint, discipline, and dismiss all subordinate employees of the city except you, the city attorney, John, the city clerk, Jay, the city treasurer, and the department heads. That's how it reads presently. And the only thing we're striking is that city clerk and city treasurer. So if we pass this, he's not going to be able to appoint, discipline, and dismiss all subordinate employees. The department heads are still going to be, the way that I read it, laying with the council.
Correct.
But then we get to paragraph 2, or subsection 2, there seems to be an inconsistency, because there it says that the city manager can appoint, discipline, and dismiss all heads of departments, subject to council confirmation. So paragraph 1 says, sorry, city manager, you can't really do any of this. It has to be the council only that can do it. And then paragraph 2 says, oh, no, you can do this with heads of departments. Are you tracking me?
I am, and I think, I mean, this probably isn't the clearest ordinance. However, I think you're supposed to read item 1 just for, let's say, rank and file employees. Basically, it's defining what the city manager can do with all subordinate employees except for the 4 that are listed out.
Which are
city attorney, city clerk, treasurer, and all department heads.
Right.
So rank and file employees, here's how you deal with them under 1.
Right.
Then for department heads, you go to 2. Then the authority for the department heads falls under item 2, subject to council confirmation.
I see. It's a modification of that first
He doesn't
paragraph.
need council confirmation for discipline of rank and file employees, I'll say. However, but for department heads, then council confirmation is required.
I see. That makes sense to me. All right. I appreciate you explaining that. Did you track all that, Drew?
I got it. Okay, I'll open it to public. Anyone in the public wishing to comment on this item? Here in the chamber? See no one? Anyone on the web?
No.
We got no correspondence.
No.
Bring it back to council. What is your pleasure?
I'll move that we approve the modifications.
Second.
Your motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So motion carries for one absence.
Thank you.
Next item is item 8, receive and file annual update on the California Open Governance Law, Brown Act, Public Records by City Attorney Scott Cross.
No, not the book. No, but I will just note, each of you should have the annual Brown Act workbook that our office updates each year. There are some minor changes that I will go over just briefly tonight, but that is the updated version that you've got. I think each of you know, in light of COVID, there was some what were designed to be temporary modifications that the governor made in his original order. The way that in which meetings can be conducted is one of them. Previously, any council member that wanted to attend from home or in a hotel or somewhere else, we had to post the agenda at that location. That location had to be made available to the public. That's one of the things that the governor's order did. It was allow the elected officials to attend remotely, but not have that place where they were attending open to the public. So that's designed to be a temporary one, but I think later tonight we're going to go over at least one bill that's proposed that may make some of those things more permanent. But for tonight, I want to just cover one major change, one major bill that went into effect this year that does have an impact on Brown Act and how you all communicate on social media. That's AB 992, went into effect January 1 of this year, and it really affects, you know, how council members interact on social media. It doesn't change how you can interact with the public on social media. You can still communicate with the public. You can provide information related to city business, city events, that sort of thing. Respond to questions from members of the public to the extent you want to.
Oftentimes, it may be best just to refer to, you know, city staff or whatever, but certainly you can engage with members of the public on social media. You can solicit information from them, responses to questions. Maybe you're conducting your own survey for whatever reason. You may want to get, you know, an idea, test the pulse of the community. So you can certainly do that. But what AB 992 does is, and it's a little bit different, and I'll go into an example. It's not necessarily a model of clarity, so I'll say that. But interaction between council members now may be deemed a violation of the Brown Act. And the biggest thing would be liking a comment from a fellow council member, even a reposting of it or a retweet of a specific council member comment could lead to a violation of a Brown Act violation. Now, the issue is, if two of you were texting with each other, there's no issue. Okay, that's technically not a violation of the Brown Act if it's just one council member texting with another council member or having a private conversation one-on-one. But now with this bill, the way that it reads is, let's say Bob was to like a comment that Jose may have posted on Jose's Facebook page, that could be deemed a violation of the Brown Act. Because again, the idea is that it's a publicly available social media page, and so perhaps you could have other council members that see that Bob likes, you know, Jose's comment, and so then it's, I guess, getting to a point where, as opposed to your private text messages that perhaps no one else would have seen.
But what if Jose says, my wife is beautiful, and post that on, because you do, on social media.
It doesn't have anything to do with city business, so I think you're okay there.
So it only when it comes to city business.
Correct. Only within subject matter jurisdiction of the city. So, you know, something that has to do with city business.
A non-majority, because it's a non-majority, so there's
Correct.
two council members of this council, 5, because the other 3 can actually see it. It's just 2 makes it a...
Correct. And that's where it's not necessarily the model of clarity. That's the way it reads. And so that's the way we can assume it would be interpreted if something happened. And I think that's basically the idea, is, again, the example I provided.
And the law says that state legislatures should not have a Twitter or a Facebook account?
What's that? I'm sorry?
And the law says that state legislators should not have a Twitter or Facebook account?
I don't recall that the law actually says that, but I think, yeah, I mean,
sure
it
does.
may be advisable that, yeah. So...
Scott, for
yes.
this, so say I'm not a friend with Bob, but Jose is, and I'm a friend of Jose. Jose likes it, it shows up. But I like Jose's, that's a violation, huh? Because, yeah.
Well, not necessarily the seeing it, but again, one person liking another council member's comment, yes. Well, but I would say, I think the way the law is drafted, the violation already occurred even before he saw it. The violation would occur when someone else liked it, correct. And again...
So what if a non-council member likes Bob's and then I like theirs, then that's a violation as well?
No, I think technically that wouldn't be a violation.
Oh, no?
Because I think if someone else, if there was an intermediary, let's say, that posted it, that's why I say it's not a model of clarity.
Yeah,
so you could both like a comment from a third party, as long as you're not liking each other's, yes.
You know how Facebook works, right?
Somewhat,
Somebody
yes.
posts something, and then there's a series of comments.
Correct.
So,
if you're...
I mean, we're just going theoretically here.
Yeah. Right.
But I post something, then some private citizen makes a comment that's in agreement with the post, but if Vong likes that comment that the citizen made, that would not be a violation, because that's an intermediate.
I wouldn't think it would be, correct. Because he's not liking your post. He's liking the comment to the post. Correct. Correct.
What if we were all to use that meh emoji with the,
well,
you're not liking meh. Yeah.
And that's kind of where it's gone. I mean, emojis could be problematic. Liking, retweeting, all that stuff could be problematic.
Bob, all my likes now will be with a thumbs down.
So all that's to say, to summarize, just be careful what you're doing on social media, especially interacting with each other on social media again. So, yeah. So, yeah, best practice, just give careful.
Clarification again.
Sure.
So, that's regardless of what account, as long as you own it, correct? Because, you know, I have a private account, I have my council member account. There's no distinction, as long as
They're both
they know
publicly
it's me.
available,
Yeah.
correct.
as long as
They're
they know.
both publicly available. If you're posting items of,
Yeah.
you know, city business, so to speak, or things that would be in with subject matter jurisdiction of the city, yes, it could be problematic. If another council member is commenting on it, yes.
But no issue if the city posts and I like it. You know, because we do like, I mean, I see so many issues because we all go to like a groundbreaking for Habitat. We all like it, we all share it, we all said, I was there. You know, you'll see, you'll like it, and it's gonna appear like we conspire to agree to give.
No, if you're liking, if each of you or any number of you are liking a comment from Chad or someone else on the city's social media page, that's fine, as long as you're not liking each other's comments about certain things. And again, if it was a groundbreaking thing,
If Chad's issue hasn't come before us,
correct.
it's not, it's wrong.
That's going to be problematic. If it's a groundbreaking thing, I don't think there'd be any issue there. Some just community event, not an item that's going to come to the city, you know, at some point, the council at some point, then I think you're going to be okay. Public information type of item. But you can see where the slippery slope is. You can see where it could go. Obviously, there's no case law interpreting this yet. It's just a brand new law that went into effect January 1. So we'll see where it goes from here. So that's it for the Brown Act. That's the only real permanent update to the Brown Act in the last year. Again, we're pending a bill we'll discuss a little bit later tonight. So the conflict of interest, this is just a kind of a recap. You guys, I think everybody knows the test that we go through. Obviously, a council member is prohibited from participating in, using his influence in, or actually making a decision that has a reasonably foreseeable material financial effect. And so we go through the test. That effect has got to be on an individual, you as individuals, or immediate family members. The regulations say the immediate family members are spouse, dependent children. The exception is the next bullet point does not apply where the effect is not distinguishable from the effect upon the public generally. So that's the public generally exception that we talk about. Obviously, you all approve rate increases for sewer, water, whatever. You're impacted by that. You approve the general plan, you're impacted by that. But you don't have any different effect. The effect upon you is not indistinguishable from the effect on the rest of the public. So those you're okay to participate in, obviously. Again, the financial effect can be positive or negative. It doesn't have to be that it's a good impact on you. It could be a negative impact on you that could preclude you from participating in that. So once we get through that, obviously the financial interest that we're concerned with, there's five categories. I think all of you are aware of those. The business entity, does the official have an investment or hold significant position with an entity? Real property, the first one is a $2,000 threshold for that. Real property, again, it's $2,000 threshold, or more commonly, I think that you're aware of, is within 1,000 feet of property that you have an interest in. Source of income, would it impact someone who's a source of income to you? And that one is a $500 threshold amount. And the next one is a source of gift. Is the decision going to impact someone who is a source of gift to any of the officials? And then the last one is personal finances. Is it going to affect your personal finances? And the source of gift is $520, as we'll get to in a minute. And the personal finance, the threshold there is $500. So those are the key ones. So if we get through that, then the 4-part test we apply, reasonably foreseeable. Okay, we've already gone through that. Step 1, is the financial effect material? We've gone through the threshold, the 2,000 or 500, depending on what it is. We have to look at the threshold. Is it material? If it's not material, then you're okay. If it meets any of those thresholds in those categories, then we need to see whether there's an exception. So again, step 3 is the one that we just talked about. Is the effect upon any of you distinguishable from the public generally? And then the last one, no participation unless there's an exception. The exceptions, they're pretty limited, but there are some. Obviously, even if you were having to recuse yourself from something that you had a conflict with, you could step down from the dais, speak as a member of the public. you know, you have that opportunity. You're still a member of the public. You're a citizen of the city, so you can do that, but you couldn't participate in the actual decision. And then there is an exception for, let's say 3 of you were conflicted out of an item, but it had to be voted upon. Then there's a mechanism where we basically choose one of the 3 of you that are conflicted out at random in order to participate, in order to have a quorum to make that vote. So just real quick, the recusal process itself, there was one change here, and I think it's down towards the bottom. You all know this process, but it's just important to go through it. But I do want to highlight the change. So you're stating what your conflict is. You're supposed to state it up there immediately before consideration of the item. Partial absence, so down, the 4th to the last bullet, partial absences still require disclosure. So that's, let's say, you know, you look at the agenda, you see, well, I've got a conflict with this item, and what's item number 3 on the agenda. I'll just show up an hour late. We'll probably be through that item. Technically, when you show up, if you do show up late, even though the council may have got beyond that item, you're still supposed to state that I did have a conflict on item number 3, you know, et cetera, I didn't participate, I wasn't at the meeting, whatever. You're still supposed to state for the record that you did have an item that was, that you would have had to recuse yourself. And similarly for the consent items, you can remain in the room. I think we've had that come up before. And then the second to the last one, for closed session items, this is important. So there can be times where one of you may have an item on the closed session agenda that you would conflict yourself out from. Technically, you're supposed to announce that before the closed session. So we get through the regular session agenda, we have the closed session, as opposed to just leaving and not participating in the closed session. You're still supposed to announce that I will not be participating in closed session item number whatever, due to whatever reason. And again, there is an exception there for if the revealing of whatever the purpose of the conflict is would expose the potential confidentiality, then we can hold that back. And then the new gift limit for this year, I think you all know that goes up every 2 years, usually about $20. In fact, it did go up $20. So this is the single source calendar year limitation, $520. You all know, I think, that the reporting requirement is $50 or more from a single source in a calendar year. You're supposed to report that gift, but the limit is $520 single source per year. The reporting is based on the calendar year, but the disqualification, we talked about previously, the disqualification. So if let's say a source of a gift was coming up for a decision, an applicant on a project or something, you don't just look at the calendar year, you look back 12 months from the decision. So had you received gifts, you know, in the last 12 months prior to the decision? So even in April, maybe you got $500 as a gift from that applicant the previous calendar year. For reporting purposes, you'd be okay. You wouldn't have had to report it yet, but it's still within 12 months of the decision, so you would have to recuse yourself. So just know that difference between the calendar year and the 12 months preceding the decision. And then lastly, the handling of gifts. I think we can get into this too if it ever comes up, but you do have the opportunity, if you get a gift, to return it. You can regift it. You can reimburse the person the value of the gift, the estimated value of the gift, and then you wouldn't have a reporting obligation in that instance. The regift has to be to a 501c3 nonprofit. You can't just regift it to your mom or your sister or your daughter. That's going to be considered you still having the gift. You had control over the gift. 30 days, you have to do it within 30 days in order to get it out of your hands and not be considered for reporting purposes or for disqualification purposes. And then the fourth bullet point is just a very minor exception, but if you did, let's say you came to the meeting tonight and you noticed, well, shoot, there's an item on here and that person was a source of gift for me, there's an opportunity at the last second basically to announce, well, I haven't returned it yet or reimbursed, but I plan to do it, and I still want to participate in that decision tonight, so there's an opportunity there. But that one would hopefully rarely come up, at least if you had that opportunity or you had that notice when the agenda came out and it was a problem, contact me, contact John, and we can walk you through the process of what you may need to do. And then you've got to document that return, obviously, within 2 days. So there's a process for that. that's it. That's as quick as I could go through it, but just a good reminder. Obviously, this is not intended to be the 2-hour training that you're required to do every 2 years, but just a brief update for you. Any questions? None?
Any questions? No? Okay,
Great. Thank you very much.
thank you. Next item, 9. So consider approval to change the council meeting schedule.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've looked at the schedule for this coming month, and the second meeting, which would be May 10th, is, we didn't really have anything on the agenda. We were able to move stuff around, so staff is recommending that we cancel the regularly scheduled meeting for May 10.
Questions for Luke? Any from the public? Not here?
No.
Web, no? Okay. What's your preference?
I'll move that we approve the cancellation of, or I'll move that we cancel the May 10th meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
4-1, the motion carries. Item 10, consider approval of authorizing a letter of opposition to SB 210 Weiner regarding automated license plate recognition systems and the use of data.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'll introduce this item, but I believe the chief is here and he will speak in more detail. SB 210 by Senator Weiner basically limits, it requires that any automated license plate reader data that is obtained but not matching a hot list, a list of hot license plates, must be destroyed within 24 hours. This is detrimental to the long-term use of this for investigations, and I'll turn it over to the chief and he can fill you in on more details.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of City Council. I'm impressed with the city manager. Every time he gets up, he knows so much about so many things. So he did an amazing job introducing this. The hot list portion is really one portion of the LPR system. The other portion is the historical data side of it. And that's where we find a majority of the value in kind of solving a lot of our cases. So I went to our investigation unit and just asked them, hey, in the last couple of years, can you pull some cases and tell me which ones we solved with LPR data that's over 24 hours? And we came up with attempt homicide, a couple bank robberies, drive-by shooting. We had a theft of a classic car that was a $150,000 classic car a couple years ago. A rash of hotel vehicle burglaries, commercial burgs, and so we have a shooting at the mall that happened with multiple vehicles, multiple suspects that we solved solely because of this LPR data from historical information. So with our citywide camera network of over 500 cameras in conjunction with the LPR, it's just invaluable. So this SB 210, if it went forward the way it's written right now, we would lose one whole side of the LPR system that we currently use. And it would really hamstring the technology as we're using it today. As far as accountability and concerns on how we use the data, how we access it, everybody's trained that has access to the LPR system. We have a policy section 462 that's specific to LPR. That's online on our website, which we're required by law to post on there. And it's audited regularly. So we would just ask that council would submit a letter in opposition for SB 210.
Question, Chief?
When I was the chief of police in Atwater, we were looking for a murder suspect. And the LPR system was instrumental in us catching this guy. And how they can conceive this as something that's not used. I think they don't want to be helpful to law enforcement, quite frankly. That's a statement, not a question.
Anyone else? I'll make another statement. I mean, this state, from the governor to the legislature, especially Weiner, they've turned their backs on victims. There's no other explanation, because these are tools that law enforcement needs on a day-to-day basis to help proactively apprehend criminals. And it's, and this data means nothing if you're not out there victimizing and preying on the vulnerable. And it just sits there in a database doing nothing until you do wrong. And so what are they afraid of? Unless they want to help in the commission of crimes. And that's what Weiner's doing here. He wants to help in the commission of crimes. And so, yeah, well, I say let's do it in big bold letters, all caps.
You want us to charge him as an accessory?
Yeah, that's what, I think I can make the elements. So I'm very creative that way. Juan?
Chief, this only limits our system. So if there was a store camera that had something, it doesn't eliminate something that's other cameras have captured for more than 24 hours, I'm assuming.
This is specific to law enforcement and capturing of license plates through the LPR system.
Okay. Yeah. We need to support you in whatever you do, and it's already hard enough. And so I am in agreement with the letter.
Okay. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this item? Anybody on the web?
No.
No correspondence?
Nothing.
So it's up to you, Councilman.
So, I'm going to move I am moving that we send a letter of opposition, to Weiner on SB 210, and I've got some comments to make as well.
Go ahead with it.
So, I think some of us may know that, the League of California Cities is in opposition to this, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why we're, addressing it. It was heard on April 5th, and unanimously, the Senate Appropriations Committee put it on the suspense file, which is a good thing, at least right now. But you never know what happens in the last days of the legislature. So I think it'd be great to have that letter in opposition from a whole bunch of cities to make sure it stays on the suspense file and doesn't get off of it in the last couple of days of the legislative session.
Second. Your motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Chief. Item 11 is consider approval authorizing a letter of opposition to AB 339 Lee, another of my heroes, regarding local government public meeting requirements. Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This was another bill that the League is opposed to and sent out an alert requesting cities send opposition letters to. And we got this alert a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. But before the agenda, or after the agenda was prepared in a committee hearing, the bill's author has agreed to make some changes that really address most of our concerns. However, those changes are not yet in print, and the bill hasn't been changed. It was just, it was heard in the Assembly Local Government Committee. And some changes were made. What this bill does is, we've all moved to kind of a different world with participation in our public meetings through WebEx or Zoom or whatever. This makes that permanent, which we'll probably do anyway, but it goes far beyond that, and it requires all public meetings. So when we have the public meeting for Blackhorse, if that's a public meeting, it would have to be broadcast on WebEx, available to anyone in the city. It also requires a significant amount of real-time translation services for anybody who requests it, and translation services into numerous different languages for any materials during the meeting. So it was a bit onerous. It just went a little bit too far. We make every attempt we can to accommodate it, but the unfortunate thing is if we, if there was a technological problem or something during one of these meetings, that could be, held grounds for not complying with the law for the Open Meeting Act and nullify the decisions. So that's why the League was so opposed to it. Not that they're opposed to openness and transparency and broadcasting to as many people as possible. It just went too far. Like I said, in the committee, there were some verbal agreement to making some changes that really address the city's concerns and probably make it okay by the city, that we would have no position on it. But until we see those changes in writing, we would request council authorization to send a letter. We would probably hold off on that letter until we see what comes out in the next iteration of this bill. That concludes my presentation.
I have a quick question. When we send these letters, do we change up any of the language ever? Because I know I've gotten these letters, and after getting the third one, I stopped reading them because it's the same narrative, different name. Do we change up our?
Yes, we will. We'll add in, maybe some direct evidence. Like on the previous one, we would talk about some of the types of cases that we have solved with this type of data that we would not be able to. Some are modified less than others, but yes, we do try to kind of customize them to being from Clovis, although they tend to follow the same general gist as the sample letter.
Anyone in the chamber wishing to comment on this item? Anybody on the web?
No.
Nobody?
No.
Okay, we'll bring it back.
Luke, what do you think about an oppose unless amended letter? Does that just make it more complicated?
We could do that. The league had taken an oppose. They may be changing their stance now that if these changes to the law are incorporated into the bill, they may change their stance. But we could do an oppose unless amended and send that now, and then.
The league, it seems, the league is aware of these changes.
Yes.
Are they still, I want us to be in solidarity with the league. Is the league just saying to hold off on sending a letter in opposition, or are they saying go ahead and send the letter in opposition and then?
The league has not. They didn't really say what they wanted. We can follow up on that. We just found out this came out Thursday.
Yeah.
That it had these changes had been agreed to.
Yeah.
But the new developments, are they so benign that it'd be okay? We'd be okay with the law?
Yeah, they're pretty significant. First of all, it would limit it to city councils and county boards of supervisors only.
Doesn't help us.
Well, but it takes away.
For the planning commission, maybe.
The public meeting with Blackhorse, the public meeting on the rezone of an area or something, takes that away.
I see.
And it would only apply to populations of 250,000 people or more.
Oh.
So Clovis drops out. It requires public access via telephone or internet, but not both. Removes language requiring two-way operability for the internet. Removes all language translation requirements. That's a pretty big one, because the real-time translation can be a challenge. In order to provide public comment, remove language allowing teleconference to be used by members of the legislative body to avoid inadvertently precluding the use of teleconferencing by the public. Refine language referring to all meetings to state all open and public meetings to ensure closed sessions are not subject to the provisions. Restore current law allowing public comment before an agenda item is taken up, and adds a sunset date of December 31st, 2023.
Yeah, I think I want to go with that we send I'm making a motion then that we send a letter opposing AB 339 unless amended as indicated in that letter, outlining those particular things.
Okay.
And then even that doesn't commit us to a support. It just, may make us more a neutral as opposed to an opposed. So that's my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4 with 1 absence. Now we move on to the workshop for the Clovis City Council to conduct the workshop to discuss the impacts on ongoing city operations during the COVID-19 state of emergency as declared by the federal government, State of California, County of Fresno, City of Clovis, and to explore actions the city may take in response to the crisis. Item 12 is consider approval of resolution, a request to repeal emergency orders 2020-05, 07, 09, 11, and 12. Duke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Before I get to the action item, I'll kind of give you our usual rundown on where we're at with the pandemic. This slide shows the confirmed cases in Fresno County. The dark black line is the county. The light gray line, although it's not that distinguishable there, is state, and this is on a per capita. You can see that we're following similar patterns to the state, and we are dropping fast. This is from the county website showing the cases in Clovis, new cases in Clovis. Now, this only goes back to kind of the peak of the second wave, so, but you can see that it is dropping off to very low numbers, which is a good thing. These are the deaths in Fresno County. Again, similar to the statewide curves, and dropping down to very low numbers here recently. This is the hospitalizations, with the blue representing total COVID hospitalizations, and the red indicating the COVID-related ICU hospitalizations. Again, that's all good news. We're down to the point where the system is no longer being threatened to be overwhelmed. So the county status, now these are the numbers from last Tuesday. New numbers come out every Tuesday, but we're at 4.9% adjusted new cases per 100,000 population, a 2.5% positivity rate, and a 3.2% health equity quartile positivity rate. This puts us in the orange tier. We would have to get both this number and this number down less than 2 to move to the yellow tier. Depending on the timing and everything, the state expects to end the tiers on June 15th. While we don't have all the details, the statement on the state's webpage says industries will return to usual operations with risk reduction measures such as masks. So that's good news. Vaccines, here's the numbers for Fresno County Vaccine Administrations. We have 36.1% of all residents with one dose, 47% of the eligible residents, those over 16 with at least one dose. And then that equates to 25.2% of all residents are fully vaccinated, and 33.2% of the eligible residents are fully vaccinated. We are seeing, unfortunately, kind of statewide and in the county, a plateauing where demand for vaccinations is leveling off or dropping, but we are still making progress. So now moving to item 12, we have passed, and council has confirmed, numerous emergency orders going back to March 16th. We are not out of this. Our emergency declaration remains in effect, but some of the orders that we adopted literally a year ago or more, they're no longer needed. It's no longer an issue, or they've been made redundant by other ways. So what staff is recommending is that we start unwinding some of these previous orders that really are no longer needed. The first is 2020-05. That was the local price gouging ordinance that we adopted when people were charging $9 for a roll of toilet paper and stuff. We're past that point. Stores are fully stocked. 2020-07 waived the RV parking restrictions to allow those essential workers that wanted to quarantine from their families to be able to leave their RV in the driveway so that they could stay there and not expose their family to whatever they were being exposed to at work. That's really no longer needed. We're recommending waiving or rescinding that order. 2020-09 waived transit fees for during the COVID emergency. But since we adopted that one, we have adopted a permanent elimination of transit fees. So that's just a redundant, no longer necessary order, we're recommending it. And then 2020-11 and 12, they just had to do with some specific enforcement through the administrative citation process of the state stay-home order and local COVID orders, and really that enforcement is no longer an issue. Again, we are coming out of this. We're not completely out of it, but things are getting better. So staff is recommending rescinding those two as well. So that concludes my report. I'm available for any questions.
Question for Luke? None? Well, I do have one. Us. So we're at tier orange.
Correct.
What does that put our chamber at, as far if we rely on the tier system?
I think the limiting factor is still the 6 feet of distance. We are not yet at the point where that's been changed. And there's talk, and it's a bit confusing because the CDC is saying one thing, but then we have to wait for the state to change their order, and then even once the state changes their order, we have to wait for OSHA to change the regulations that implement that order. So far, it really doesn't change how many people we have in here. If the state were to follow the CDC guidelines, I think, and change their order and their OSHA regulations, I think we could get to the point where if you had a vaccinated section, there wouldn't be any social distancing required. And then social distancing would only be required for the unvaccinated people. But we're not there yet. We're monitoring that. We're trying to keep an eye on what the state's doing to follow CDC guidance, but we're not there yet.
Yeah, but I don't think we could do that. Have a vaccinated section, like COVID couldn't float over to...
We were joking about that. Do you remember back the old non-smoking section where, you'd go into the coffee shop and that table had an ashtray on it and this one didn't, and you were in the non-smoking section? Or in an airplane, correct. So we're waiting for the state to see what orders they're going to adopt. And then also, because we have employees in here, we also have to make sure that OSHA adopts the right regulations to implement that. Otherwise, we have to go by the most stringent. So right now, we have not been able to relax anything with a number of people in here.
So Cal OSHA is the weakest link. So they're the most stringent of the regulatory agencies?
Oftentimes, they do become the most stringent. Sometimes the public health order doesn't necessarily pertain to employees, but when it does pertain to employees, then they become pretty stringent.
Because CDC has lowered its standards, and then those of us that are fully vaccinated, I mean, according to the science, almost no one can infect me, and I can't infect anyone. That's the current science. And therefore, I don't need a mask here, inside a chamber, or outside. But not everybody's in my situation, and I recognize that. But I see all these empty seats that don't have to be quite as empty, based on science, but not based on Cal OSHA. Cal OSHA, I'm sure, requires still the 6 feet.
Cal OSHA and the public health order requiring 6 feet of distance.
So, okay, and I know they're way behind even CDC guidelines. Okay, so it's Cal OSHA we have to.
And the state health orders. They cover different things. Cal OSHA only.
Once again, the governor, huh?
Cal OSHA only covers the employees aspect.
But they take their marching orders for the governor. As long as they're in fear that this, and they don't believe in science, they'll continue doing what they're doing. Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
On 2020-11, 2020-12, just to be clear, when we remove these, not all of a sudden people should interpret that to mean that our enforcement mechanisms in the city of Clovis are going to start, interfering with business that is acting in a way that's inconsistent with the governor's orders. Is that right?
That's correct. What these two orders did is they allowed us to use the administrative citation process, but in egregious situations, we could, the administrative process includes a warning and then 10 days and such. These two orders allowed that to be bypassed. The process still stays, and there's also other processes besides the administrative citation process to enforce them. This just removes that specific criteria that we had adopted.
Okay, thank you.
And so Clovis our law enforcement acts the same way it's been acting throughout since we placed those emergency orders in place. Since we put them in place, our officers will act the same way. If it's egregious, yes, we might intervene, but if it's not,
correct. We
won't enforce the state's mandates, and there are no county mandates anymore. So the only agencies that are placing mandates on California residents as a whole is the state.
Correct.
And we'll act as we've been throughout the pandemic.
Correct. Very early on, I can't remember which. That was probably April last year. We said, look, we're not the primary enforcement. We reserve the right to enforce it in an egregious situation, but that this is not police work, and we're not going to use our officers for this type of work. And we haven't done it since then.
And I just want to praise the citizens of Clovis. If you look at all the numbers that have come, all the statistics that have been shown that you brought us on a almost weekly basis, the rate of infection in the city of Clovis was the lowest per capita throughout the county. When the local newspaper, and by that I mean the Fresno Bee, when they publish the rate of vaccination, it is people in our metropolitan area, especially Clovis, who are vaccinating the most. So our people, the people that live in this general area, have heeded the warnings. They've acted responsibly. They didn't cause they weren't the cause of a lot of infections. And now that the vaccine, the solution for this pandemic, is available, they've gone and got vaccinated. And so, I think our community has done a great job because we trusted them to do the great job, and they did. They know what they need to do to keep themselves healthy, their families healthy, and our community healthy. So I want to praise our citizens because the numbers show it. It's not the science shows it. Okay, so have I opened it to the public? Anyone in the public wishing to comment on that, on this item?
No.
And nobody on the web, nobody?
Correct. No,
okay, I'll bring it back to the council for the removal of these.
Sure, I'll move that we approve the resolution, which is repealing emergency orders 2020-05, 2020-07, 2020-09, 2020-11, and 2020-12.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. So motion carries, 4 and 1 absence. Next item is city manager comments. Luke, you have?
Yeah, earlier when we were talking about the changes to the code, we were joking about my enforcement powers over department heads and such. We were joking around about that since this is a public hearing and people are listening. I just want to make it clear that the fact that really we didn't know what that process was kind of speaks volumes of the quality of people we have as department heads, and that enforcement and disciplinary action on our department heads is just something we just do not deal with because they are such a great team of people. So I just wanted to make that, just in case anybody took it wrong or, listened to what was being said and typed it out without the laughter behind it, that they would know that that is not an issue with us.
Okay, that's it? No, and then your staff's to be commended. I think that you're absolutely right. It's so rare that any of those, it's the council members we have to worry about. And it's been said it was said earlier in this meeting, so. Council comments. Bong.
Yeah, first I wanted to thank Mayor for going to the funeral of Colonel Vang Phong. They expressed a lot of gratitude because he was a resident here in Clovis. And, as you've heard, he had a stroke for over 20-something years. And they've taken care of him here in Clovis all those years. And so you being there meant a lot, so thank you for that.
Great.
And then I just wanted to commend those who were recognized at the Salute to Business from the Chamber. Just glad the Chamber finally put an event when we were out in person, and to Nathan, to the hospital, to Dr. Lori Bennett, and I think that was all of them. So
No, Hatmaker.
oh, and Susan Hatmaker, yeah, Trustee Susan Hatmaker. So appreciate it.
So I was wrong on the HOAs for Harlan Ranch, for anybody who was thinking of moving there, and it's only $140 a month. I think I said it was $400 a month. And had a great time at the rodeo. Really glad that that thing got off the ground. I can't imagine what must have been going on when we dropped from red to orange, and then all of a sudden the capacity increased, and how they had to make the adjustments there. So it was a great show, as it always is. So it's nice to slowly get back into regular life here in Clovis.
Drew?
How about that flag at the rodeo?
Oh, beautiful.
That was pretty darn cool. That's all I have to say.
No, Chad took some great pictures of that flag. You did too. You posted it. I can't like them anymore though. So it's a flag. It's a beautiful. No, it's a beautiful flag that I can't like anymore. Anyway, so thank you, California state legislators. I got a report that I went to a COG meeting. We're going to discuss the election for the next iteration of the Measure C, and there's a movement to postpone it 2 years from now, 2 years from what they were saying. So that'll be on our next agenda for the mayors to post for the renewal vote to be in 2024 versus 2022. So that might, if it doesn't pass in 2024, it'll be a crunch because it has to be renewed by 27. So that's the most significant vote we took that night, so that we got to keep that in mind. Measure C has done a lot for the whole county. 168 is a product of Measure C and many other road improvements throughout our great county. So we'll keep that in mind. And yes, the rodeo was a great event, and testament to the Rodeo Association and all those that helped them get their event up and running. They showed a lot of enthusiasm and testament to our city that we can get those things off the ground. I just want to praise Clovis, and it was a year of a great once in a century pandemic, and our city was a leader, and not our city, the city of Clovis. I want to say all of us that live in this community, we were leaders throughout the region in exemplifying what needs to be done to overcome such a great medical issue, and there's example after example of that in the city, the school district, everywhere, county government. People just stepped up to the plate and made things happen. And now that we found the solution with the vaccines, people are stepping up again and trying to reach that evasive or elusive herd immunity. But I think we're going to get there, and it's going to come sooner than later. And we're almost there. So.
Can I report out or can I
sure
mention two other things? I attended the North Kings GSA and approved our budget, and subsequent to the meeting, there had been some awarding of grants to, I think it was both FID and the Fresno Metropolitan Flood Control District for recharge projects, which we need in North Kings GSA just to make sure that we hit our objectives. And the second thing is, happy birthday, Jose.
Thank
I know
you.
it's a week early, but.
It's a week, yeah, but you canceled the meeting. No,
Because we knew you were gonna be partying all night.
Actually, Jackie told me it was deemed a Clovis holiday and, and you guys were given the day off. So, thank you. And that brings our meeting to an end, and we can be adjourned.
San Jose's Day.
No, it's not San Jose's Day.